I guess there won't be any corn mazes this year. The pandemic, of course. But I won't be sorry. I don't do mazes anymore. If you don't know what I'm talking about, a corn maze is just what it sounds like. A maze cut into a field of corn, the high rows of corn stalks serving in place of the tall hedges in a traditional maze. They were popular attractions during fall and around Halloween, and while they were generally kid-family friendly, they were often open at night when the darkness was in control. But this is the real reason I don't like corn mazes. It happened one Friday night, back when I was in library school. It was mid-October, at the start of our Thanksgiving break, and our study group had decided to visit a haunted corn maze. A haunted corn maze on adults-only night. It was the last part that appealed to me. Adults only, eh? And the other thing that appealed to me was a girl in my study group, Laura. Laura was a short, dark girl from out west who was always smacking her way around the halls in flip-flops, and she was still wearing her damn flip-flops in October, even though the nights were getting cold. Though I figured I could keep her warm if she got too cold. At the maze, we were greeted by the Grim Reaper himself. I was impressed, as he was made up to look like Klaus Kinski and Nosferatu. This was an era before zombies and killer clowns, although I wouldn't have been surprised if old Leatherface was hiding somewhere in the maze. We had to go in one at a time, which wasn't my plan. My plan was to protect Laura from the werewolf or Frankenstein mannequins. But I made damn sure I was the person who followed in after her. The maze had a no flashlight rule. You had only your eyes to guide you on your way. Once inside, I was surprised at how dark it was. You could only see a few feet ahead in the murky half-light. Still, I hurried ahead as best I could, hoping to catch up with Laura. The usual spooky Halloween sounds had been playing when I first entered, but I hadn't gone very far in when I noticed that everything had gone dead quiet. No music, nothing, not even the sound of the corn stalks rustling in the wind. In fact, there was no wind. Everything had gone dead still, and I couldn't even hear my footsteps on the hard earth. I tried to move ahead to see if I could catch up with Laura, but the still air itself seemed an obstacle. I felt like I was wading through water up to my waist. But there wasn't any water. There was nothing. I went to call out to Laura, calling her name and to wait up for me. But my voice wouldn't work, even though I opened my mouth and tried to force the words out. As I penetrated further into the maze, what little light there was seemed to appreciably dim, and I could barely see more than 10 feet ahead. It was like I was being enveloped in black fog. And then I saw something lying on the ground. A small flip-flop, one of Laura's, lying bottom up on the cold ground. I then found I could speak and began to call out, "Laura! Laura!" over and over again, not caring if anyone heard me. But my voice had a weird metallic quality, as if it was coming through speakers, not from my vocal cords. A tall black figure blocked my way. A shadow person with two baleful and glaring eyes that were intensely white, like the high beams of an automobile. A wave of frigid terror washed over me, making me stop dead. The thing was huge, filling the passage between the corn stalks like a spider from which radiated darkness. And then it began to replay my own words. Replay my own words, but in a distorted, high-pitched falsetto. "Laura! Laura! Laura! Laura!" Whatever the thing was, it was mocking me, and I exploded forward in anger and ran at it full tilt, and collided with nothing. But I felt a wave of clamminess envelop me, clamminess which felt unclean, as if I was pushing through a veil of filth. And then I was through, and I found myself in the center of the maze, and Laura was there. I stopped in shock. Laura was completely naked, her body draped around a marble pedestal, topped by a weathered green ornament, which I recognized as a copper sundial. Her eyes were closed, and she had the most peculiar expression on her face, part ecstasy, part sheer terror. I spoke to her. "What the hell is going on?" Laura, what the hell? Laura, can you hear me?" No reaction. I took a closer look at the sundial. It had names on it. Cain, Judas, Gilles de Rais, Elizabeth Bathorny, a litany of evil. And then the shadow thing was there, and enveloping the glowing white nakedness of Laura's body, and it began to lift her off the ground and into the night sky. I reacted instinctively and threw my arms around her, and thus began a silent and frantic tug of war with a strong but insubstantial opponent, against a shadow, against darkness. Laura's nude body was trembling with fear and with her breathing was shallow, and I could see the whites of her eyes. And then her eyes went black, pure onyx, like two pools of Stygian blackness, and a tremor ran through her. And then the thing was gone, and Laura collapsed into my arms, mumbling, like a person talking in their sleep. And her eyes snapped open, and she stared wildly at me, while at the same time becoming aware that she was completely naked. We heard voices calling our names, and could see the beams of approaching flashlights. I ran towards them while Laura got into her clothes, and I blocked the line of sight. Jeff, a big, rather officious dude, arrived first. "Is Laura here?" I nodded. "Where have you guys been?" I didn't care for his tone, so I answered nonchalantly, "We got lost." "We've been waiting for you for over an hour," he said, as the rest of the study group showed up, and Laura joined us. "Thank God you guys came and found us. We've been wandering around in circles," she said, attempting to sound sprightly. She was trying to stay calm, but I could hear the note of hysteria in her voice. "We all made it through in about 20 minutes, someone said, to which Laura replied, "I guess we're dumb." We drove back to school in silence. I could only imagine what the others were thinking. I tried to speak to Laura alone, to find out what happened and what she remembered, but there was always someone else there, listening in, so I kept my mouth shut. I could ask her next week, if I could get her alone. The next day I took off for home and spent the holiday with my family. When I got back to school the next week, it was to find Laura gone. Apparently, she had dropped out. Our study group finished its work, and I never saw Laura again. And by next semester, I'd largely forgotten her. But a few years later, I visited a fall corn maze with family and managed to get lost again. It was daytime, but within the maze itself, it was as dark as twilight. Dark and cold, and as I stumbled along, trying to find my way out, I heard a sound from overhead, from the sky. Faint at first, then gradually louder. A voice, a woman's voice, a voice tremulous with agony and fear, calling my name, my name. And then I recognized the voice. It was Laura's voice. Laura's voice, coming from the sky. And as I listened, it gradually faded away. And I have never been in a corn maze, or any maze since. I'm too afraid. Thank you so much for listening. If this is your first visit to my channel, my name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories, featuring cryptids such as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. I hope you will consider subscribing. Till midnight, cheers.